Hi friend, my name is Sarah and welcome back to my channel. I usually don't do a lot of tag videos or trendy videos or something like that, but I have seen this trend going around, I think on YouTube and maybe Instagram, and it's called the 10 before the end, I believe. I'm not really sure who is the original creator who created this, but if I can find it, I will definitely tag them in the description box below. But basically, you are supposed to share the 10 books that you are wanting to read before the end of the year, and I have 10 books right in front of me, so let's just go ahead and get started with the very first book. I also want to let you know that I kind of separate them into different categories, and you don't really have to do it, but I just wanted to do it. Anyways, the first book is called How Freaking Romantic by Emily Harding. This is actually one of the book of the month books that I paid for from July 2025. I don't know if you can see behind me right here, but I have a whole shelf of all of the book of the month books that I was able to find when I go thrifting or when I go to used bookstore or even the local library. But this is the book that I actually chose with my book of the month subscription, and I think I've only been subscribing since 2025, but I have been skipping quite a lot of months because I was able to find book of the month books when I'm out and about book shopping. So I decided to skip if I don't find any book for that month that I particularly love. But because I want to make sure that it's worth it to subscribe to book of the month, I want to pick one of the book of the month books as my 10 because I just have to at least read one of the books that I paid for full price. So this is it. It is, I believe, a romance book, and it looks like it's a pretty easy small read, so hopefully I'll be able to read it in the next couple months. If I'm not mistaken, this book is about two lawyers. Beatrice, the main character's best friend or something, are getting a divorce, so she is trying to represent her, and her best friend's ex-husband is gonna be represented by this lawyer named Nathan. Unfortunately, what should end with a few choice words soon spirals into uncharted territory when Nathan shows up at Beatrice's NYU law office a few days later as a newly minted adjunct professor and her new colleagues. So I think Beatrice is also a professor at NYU, and then Nathan, the, I guess, nemesis lawyer, is also gonna be her coworker. I feel like that meet-cute is just kind of cute and also interesting, and I just want to know what's gonna happen between these two main characters. So the next two books is kind of part of like another category, and this is the genre of books that I don't usually read. And the next book in that little category is Farah Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessica Sutanto. I think the genre of this book is probably cozy mystery, and I don't really read a lot of them. And I probably have 1.5 bookshelves of all cozy mystery thriller books, so I thought I would pick the most mild out of the bunch. Jessica Sutanto is also an Indonesian author that has books published in the US, and if you don't know, I am also Indonesian. I was born and raised there, and I moved here when I was a teenager, and I just feel like I relate so much with her life because she also kind of moved around the world, I guess. She went to school in England and then she lives in Singapore, and it was just kind of interesting to read a book from a fellow Indonesian who, I guess, moved around as well for education. Anyways, this one is about Farah Wong, who is a little old lady, and one night I think she found a dead body in her tea shop. She reported to the police officer, obviously, but she kind of took matters into her own hand. So I just want to see how that is going to unfold throughout this book. A lot of people really love this book. There's even a second book that's already out, and I think the third book is the one that she's writing currently maybe, and it's in the process of being published as well. So I want to try and catch up before the next book comes out. The next book that I picked in this kind of like genre that I don't really read, and I'm pretty sure this is historical fiction. It's Next Year in Havana by Chanel Clinton. There's two timelines in this book, I believe. Havana in 1958 and Miami in 2017. I have had this book for years. I think I bought this maybe back in I don't know, 2020, 2021, before I even started kind of like reading as a hobby, like a regular hobby. So I decided to pick it up to just kind of finally read this book, because I've had this in my personal collection for such a long time. Like I said earlier, this book has two timelines. The first timeline is Havana 1958. It's about 19-year-old Eliza that is part of Cuba's high society, where she is largely sheltered from the country's growing potential unrest until she embarks on a clandestine affair with a passionate revolutionary. The second timeline is Miami 2017, and it's about freelance writer Marisol Ferreira. She grew up hearing romantic stories of Cuba from her late grandmother Eliza, who was forced to flee with her family during the revolution. Eliza's last wish was for Marisol to scatter her ashes in the country of her birth. So I think Marisol is gonna go to Cuba because she's never been there, and trying to basically fulfill her grandma's last wish, and I cannot wait to read about it. I don't know why, but I feel like anything about Cuba just kind of piqued my interest, because I've always wanted to travel there and I haven't been, so maybe in the future I can travel there. But in the meantime, I guess I'll read this book first. The next book, I'm not really sure what category I'm putting this in, but it's definitely something along the line with fantasy book that is super hype that I definitely need to read right now before the hype goes away. I mean, I don't think this book is hyped up anymore, but a lot of people are still talking about this book, and it is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is part of a duology. I do have the second book already, so I'm hoping that I can finally start the series and maybe finish it by the end of next year. But I obviously have to read the first book first. But if you've never heard about Divine Rivals, I feel like you probably have, because this book was so popular when it first came out. I'm pretty sure it came out in the last year or two. This is about two young rival journalists who find love through a magical connection, and they must face the depths of hell in a war between gods to seal their fate forever. This is about Iris, who just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction, and her brother is missing from the front lines. And her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Haute Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish into the hands of Roman Kit, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle for her brother, fate of mankind, and love. Divine Rivals is an epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. I cannot wait to read this. Like I said, everybody has been talking about this book and highly recommending this book, and because I already have it in my physical library, I definitely want to try to read it before the end of this year. The next three books, I feel like I would categorize them as my favorite authors, because I have read some of their other books before, and I feel like it's time for me to keep reading their backlist. The next book in this category is The Love Hypothesis by Elie Hazelwood. I just recently read Bride by Elie Hazelwood, and I just love that book, and I probably read it in like about a day or two, and that is just how I know that she is one of my favorite authors. So I decided to pick this up for my 10 Before the End book list, because I know that this book is also being adapted to a movie, and I want to make sure that I was able to read this book before the movie comes out. This book is about a third-year PhD candidate, Olive Smith, who doesn't believe in lasting romantic relationships. However, her best friend does, and that is what got her into the situation, convincing Anne that Olive is dating, and while on her way to a happily ever after was always going to take more than a hand-wavy Jedi mind tricks, because scientists require proof. So like any other self-respecting biologist, Olive panics and kisses the first man she sees. That man is none other than Adam Carlson, a young hotshot professor and a well-known ass. Which is why Olive is positively floored when Stanford's reigning lab tyrant agrees to keep her charade a secret and be her fake boyfriend. And when a big science conference goes haywire, putting Olive's career on the Bunsen burner, Adam surprises her again with his unyielding support and even more unyielding six-pack abs. Suddenly, their little experiment feels dangerously close to combustion, and Olive discovers that the only thing more complicated than a hypothesis on love is putting her own heart under the microscope. I know that Ellie Hazelwood is known for this STEMinist romance or something like that. I think that's what people call it. And this is gonna be my first STEM romance of Ellie Hazelwood's that I hopefully will be reading soon. I've read, like I said, Bright and Check and Mate by Ellie Hazelwood before, and like I said, I love her books, I love her writing, and I was able to basically read all of them within like a day or two. So I'm hoping that this will give me the same vibe, that I will be able to read it pretty fast, and hopefully I will be able to pick it up before the end of the year. My next favorite author, I would say, is Frederick Backman, but I was only able to read one of his books so far, which is A Man Called Ove, and I love that book. I still highly recommend it to people who have asked me which book is like my favorite so far, and I was also recommended that book by another friend of mine that I found through YouTube. I feel like I need to pick up a next book by Frederick Backman, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to do it before this year ends. So the next one that I'm gonna hopefully pick up is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. I don't think this is one of his popular books, but I think I had it for quite some time now. The premise is pretty interesting, and the reason why I decided to pick it up is because the main character's name is my niece's name. So this book is about Elsa, who is 7 years old, and she is different. Her grandma is 77 years old and crazy, as in standing on the balcony firing paintball guns at strangers crazy. She's also Elsa's best and only friend, and at night Elsa takes refuge in her grandmother's stories in the land of Almost Awake and the kingdom of Miyamas, where everybody is different and nobody needs to be normal. When Elsa's grandmother dies and leaves behind a series of letters apologizing to people she has wronged, Elsa's greatest adventure begins. Her grandmother's instructions lead her to an apartment building full of misfits, monsters, attack dogs, and old crones, but also to the truth about fairy tales and kingdoms and grandmother like no other. My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry is told with the same comic accuracy and beating heart as Frederick Backman's best-selling debut novel, A Man Called Ove. It is a story about life and death and one of the most important human rights, the right to be different. I just feel like it's gonna take me into my feels. It's gonna give me the same vibe as A Man Called Ove. If you have read that book, you know what I mean, hopefully, and I cannot wait to be in that kind of like space again, hopefully with reading this book. My next favorite author is Catherine Center. I think I have read at least 3 or 4 of her books this year, which is kind of insane, and I do have 2 more books in my personal library that I think I should get a head start, so I decided to pick one of them, and it is The Rom-Comers by Catherine Center. This book is about 2 screenwriters, and I just love reading a book about people who write, whether they're authors for like a book or screenwriters. But anyways, this is about Emma. She desperately longs to be a screenwriter. She spent her life studying, obsessing over, and writing romantic comedies, and good ones, and she did win a contest. But she's also been the sole caregiver for her kind-hearted dad who needs full-time help. Now, when she gets a chance to rewrite a script for famous screenwriter Charlie Yates, it's a break too big to pass up. Emma's younger sister steps in for that duty, and Emma moves to LA for 6 weeks for the writing gig of a lifetime. But what is it they say? Don't meet your heroes? Charlie Yates doesn't want to write with anyone, much less a failed nobody screenwriter. Worse, the romantic comedy he's written is so terrible, it might actually bring on the apocalypse. Plus, he doesn't even care about the script. It's just a means to get a different one greenlit. Oh, and he thinks love is an emotional Ponzi scheme. But Emma's not going down without a fight. She will stand up for herself and for rom-coms and for love itself. She'll convince Charlie that love stories matter, even if she has to kiss him senselessly to do it. But what if that kiss is accidentally amazing? What if real life turns out to be so much more real than fiction? What if the love story they're writing breaks all of Emma's rules and comes true? I'm super excited for this one because I know that all of Catherine Sander's books is just amazing. I love the story that she writes and also the research behind it. So I cannot wait to read this book. I'm hoping that it will give me kind of the same vibe I usually feel from reading Catherine Sander's books. If you like romance and if you like closed door romance, Catherine Sander books, I can highly recommend that. They don't have spice at all. Maybe like a little bit, like you assume that something happened but it's not on the page. So if you want something that is super swoony, that will give you the feels, like you'll definitely will feel connected to these characters, I would highly recommend one of her books. And I'm hoping that this is gonna be one of my favorite Catherine Sander's book as well, and hopefully I'll be able to read it before the end of the year. The last two books, I don't really know what to categorize them in, but the book that I'm gonna be hopefully reading is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This book is, I think, a memoir, right, about herself, about Michelle Zauner, and I think she's writing things about what happens or what she feels after her mom passed away. This is actually a part of the Goodreads seasonal challenge for the last 3 months of the year, and I know that people highly recommend this book. They love this book, so I decided to pick it up. I kind of started reading probably the first, 6-7 pages, and hopefully I'll be able to continue it before the end of this year. And the last book is called Soulmates by Susan Lee. This is a YA romance book, I believe. I read one of her books called Romance Rivalry. I love the writing, but I don't love the characters so much. I just feel like the main female character is a bit too chaotic, even though I understand what she feels at 18 years old, just trying to go to college and trying not to disappoint your Asian American parents. But I do love her writing. I also love her personality on social media. I follow her basically everywhere and I just think she's funny. And I just wanted to see if I like her other books, so I decided to pick this one up. There's another one, I think, called The Name Drop that I kind of want to read as well because that premise is also pretty interesting. I'm just gonna read the back of the book because I kind of forgot what this book is about. Hannah Cho had the next year all planned out. The perfect summer with her boyfriend Nate, and then a fun senior year with her friends, or with their friends. But then Nate does what everyone else in Hannah's life seems to do. He leaves her, claiming that they have nothing in common. He and all her friends are newly obsessed with K-pop and K-dramas, and Hannah is not. After years of trying to embrace the American part and shunning the Korean side of her Korean American identity to fit in, Hannah finds that's exactly what now has her on the outs. But someone who does know K-dramas so well that he's actually starring in one is Jacob Kim, Hannah's former best friend whom she hasn't seen in years. He's desperate for a break from the fame, so a family trip back to San Diego might be just what he needs. That is, if he and Hannah can figure out what went wrong when they last parted and navigate the new feelings developing between them. I love childhood crush or friends that have been separated and now they're kind of coming back together to hopefully get a second chance in their friendship or relationship. So I cannot wait to read this one. Hopefully I like it better than Romance Rivalry. I know that this book are YA books and sometimes it's okay if I can't really relate too much with the characters, but hopefully I will like them better and hopefully I will be able to read this before the end of the year. Okay, so all of those are the 10 books that I hope that I can read before the end of the year. Let me know in the comment below if you have your own 10 books that you want to read before the end of the year and leave them in the comment below.